What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Rebel Yankee Podcast, where it's God first, guts and guns. I'm your host, Jan Backus, and today we're joined by my good friend, Chad Herzog. Chet is a son of a king, a husband, a father, president of SYC Colorado, campus lead of the safety team at Red Rocks Church, Arvada, a pastor. Is that right? Are you a pastor?
Aren't we all? If you're called to be priest among men, right, for believers.
Are you a pastor?
No.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
So you are, aren't you?
No, not officially, no.
Okay. Somebody said you were a pastor.
I do weddings and funerals. I'm trying to keep that even.
Okay. That's why I put a question mark there.
Okay.
But he is also a hunting guide.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's quite the resume. And we didn't even talk about your full-time job.
That would take longer than we have.
Exactly. So anyway, you have plenty of credentials, that's for sure.
And everything you mentioned is probably the most important thing, not so much what I do for a living.
Right. Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I left it out.
Yeah.
Chet, today, because you have no idea, you walked in here blind. You didn't even know where we were when you pulled up. Just so you know, we're going to talk about forgiveness. We're going to talk about what it looks like to be a successful husband and a father, because that's what I consider you. We're going to talk about SYC Colorado, and we're going to talk about hunting.
Okay.
Cool?
Yep. Let's go.
On this show, we always put kingdom business first. And what I mean by that, we'll talk about how God is moving in our lives. You can go first. This week, what has God done where you feel like he's moving in your life, Chet?
Well, it's kind of been a little bit of a journey, but in this week, but in particular, I guess you would say that he's kind of moved through understanding what's important in life, and we did. I've got 3 kids, and they're all in the ministry of some sort. So, just this week we did we went to visit Red Rocks Church. They did a recording at Red Rocks Amphitheater, and my middle child got up and she knocked it out of the park. Super proud. And so what he taught me through all of that is people ask me how that happened, and I'll say what I did is I got out of the way. I didn't inject any of that. I never pushed them to do that. I never said here's what you need to do for your life, and it's a ministry. Right. Never said that.
Nice.
So what he's teaching me is that I don't need to know what his plan is exactly. I just need to move forward in what he's given me to do. And if it's not my job to understand the very end of this, then it's not as exciting. So that's kind of what he's done this week, is to understand, okay, yep, he's got me. I understand that. And he keeps revealing that over and over again in my life.
I love that. That's awesome.
That's cool.
Yeah, we're going to talk about all your kids here in a little bit. For me, Chet, this week, man, glory to God, he has showed me so much mercy this past week. Just on my hunting trip, lessons in faith, lessons in trusting the Lord, and letting go of some anger. But I feel super blessed.
Yeah.
Feel super, super blessed. So, disclaimer, we're just a couple dudes who love the Lord. We are not pastors or teachers. Chet might be, we're just not really sure. We encourage you to open your Bibles and dig into these verses yourself. See what they mean to you. Your sin isn't any sinnier than our sin, and we are talking to ourselves just as much, if not more, than anybody else. We're not perfect.
True statement.
Did you think I was perfect? I don't think you thought I was perfect.
No, because I know you don't think I'm perfect. So I think it's just how we're designed.
You're gonna be a perfect guest. That I do know. So, this week when I was thinking about preparing for the podcast, I was like, I'm gonna pick some verses that relate to my hunting trip, and we're gonna talk about how trusting in the Lord and remaining faithful is important. And then I think it was yesterday, I opened up my Orthodox Bible app, and there was a quote from St. Mark the Ascetic, and it said, "Do not remember wrongs, and God will not remember yours." And that just
That's
kind of
awesome.
changed everything for me. Because that's something I've been working on. When I was out on my hunt trip, I've been holding on to some anger. And I don't want to get into specifically why and who and stuff like that. But I've been having problems letting go of some anger in my heart. I don't walk around pissed off or anything. I just, inside, I just got like this thorn that just won't stop. And even my prayers, like I will pray for this person, but they're kind of like backhanded prayers.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about?
Sure. Oh, I know what you're talking about. It's kind of a snarky prayer.
Yeah. Like,
Yeah.
Like God, exactly.
Give him what you think he deserves.
No, well, not that bad.
Okay.
Yeah. So, but on my hunt trip, I was like, man, this is becoming like an anchor. I don't like it. I just got to let go. My prayers have actually changed for this person. You know, I'm like not going off in the weeds in my prayer, you know, for this particular individual. So anyway, diving into what St. Mark the Ascetic said, I mean, it's in the Bible. Colossians 3:13 says, bearing with one another, and if one has a complaint against another, forgiving each other as the Lord has forgiven you, so you also must forgive. What does that bring up for you, Chet?
It's funny because it's growing up. I have an older brother, a younger sister. All right, and I don't know if you know who Bill Gothard is. Bill Gothard is he's an OG guy that had all these meetings and stuff and revivals that would do, and he would talk about family and marriages, and had never been married or had kids.
Oh, wow.
Right? So it was all biblical knowledge, but no practical understanding of how that all looks. So I was totally not for that. I got married at 34. I was single for a very long time. My brother got married at 18. His wife was 18. They had 7 kids, and they loved Bill Gothard. I call them Goths, my brother. Only for that reason. And so he always encouraged me to try to go to these things. And so it's like in my 30s, I finally, my dad had passed away when I was 30 and he was 60, died of cancer. And he was my best friend. He's my mentor. He's my earthly father that him and I just got along like crazy. And so that happened, and then I had a failed engagement, and don't have any answers for that. But it's, God knew better than I needed what I needed. So it's kind of at a breaking point where I go, oh, you know what? They had this Bill Gothard thing happening at Riverside Baptist Church. I said, okay, well, my buddy John, I went to Air Force. I was in Air Force with. He also was a Goth. so he had that little booklet and all that stuff you had to buy and all that. And I'm going to get to your point in a second here.
I'm used to this.
But I said, I can't remember one thing. I said, look, I'm going to be diligent. You hold my feet to the fire, make me go these 5 days. I don't know that I'm going to enjoy it, but I think God, I just kind of feel like I need to go do this. So I did, and I can only tell you one thing that I can remember the entire meeting is he said, hey, if there's something that's going on in your life or something you have, an ailment or something, you don't think God really will consider you as such a small problem that he cares, pray about that. So I had a planter's wart on my foot. And plantar warts don't just go away. You got to do something to mitigate them, right? You got to burn them off, cut them out, whatever, And I go, okay, well, I'm just going to pray for this plantar's wart to be gone. And I meant it. I was sincere about it. I go, if you really see me at this level, I mean, I've been a Christian since I was 10 years old. I prayed to receive Christ. And so I did. I prayed for that. And then I totally forgot that I'd even done it. Well, 6 months down the road, I'm fiddling around with my foot, and my plantar warts is gone.
Oh, wow.
I'm like, okay, I've got a wart story. And so, I don't know what that does with your question. What was your question?
So the Bible verse was,
Oh, forgiveness. Okay.
Yes.
So it's part of that whole thing. One other thing I do remember, because I was a little bit sore about my whole
Failed engagement.
my whole engagement thing, right?
Right.
And I had said things and had some feelings about that weren't good. And so they said, you know what? About forgiveness, you need to reach out. If you harbor that, that's on you. If you ask for forgiveness, don't expect them to accept it. But you've done what you're done your part. So actually, I called this gal up and I asked for her forgiveness for some of the things that I had said, and some of the feelings I had for her. And she goes, "Why are you doing that?" She goes, "I'm the one that did all this stuff." I go, "I'm just saying that what I did was wrong. You don't have to accept if you don't have to forgive me, you don't have to accept my apology, but I'm just telling you this is the right thing for me to do." I've kind of learned that. That's where my story was going now that you said that.
Sure. But you are asking for forgiveness.
I was.
Yeah. I'm talking about forgiving somebody else.
Oh, and that's the other part of it. So I think along with forgiveness, it's when people ask for forgiveness and you forgive them, also you have to throw in forgetness.
Yes.
Because if you don't forget, but you've forgiven them, you're still harboring that same feeling. And that is not true forgiveness, because God did not do that for us.
You are on point. You hit the nail on the head. So let me read you this little thing I got. When we love the way God calls us to love, we stop keeping score. It's easy to remember every time someone hurts you, the betrayal, the harsh word, the disappointment. Our flesh wants justice, but the Spirit calls us higher. Paul writes that love keeps no record of wrongs. That's not because wrongs don't happen. It's because love chooses to forgive even when it remembers the pain. And this is what you're talking about right here. Christ didn't hang on the cross and say, "I'll forgive you, but I'll never forget." He said, "Father, forgive them." And the scripture says that God casts our sins. You will cast all of our sins into the depths of the sea. And that's Micah 7:19. He doesn't hold our past over our heads. He erases it. When we keep a ledger of what others did to us, we chain ourselves to the past. But when we forgive and let go, we make room for God's peace to move in. Mm-hmm. And that is just beautiful. And that's kind of what I felt on this trip, is I let go a little bit. And instead of having these ill feelings, I replace them with good feelings.
And when you mentioned that, I think what the verse that came to my mind is my life verse, actually.
Okay.
Romans 8:18.
Let's hear it.
It's that the worries and cares of the troubles of this world will not compare to the glory we're going to see when we get to heaven, right? That's the Chet version of that. It's probably the Cliff Note version, but that's the idea of it, right? So whatever God throws at you, or whatever you're thrown in this world, that is not going to be nearly as bad as the glory you're going to see, the goodness when you get to heaven, right? So the troubles of the world they're not going to compare to that at all. And I threw that verse out. I was traveling from the Gulf Coast to Denver, but I had to go through Chicago, And on that trip, my daughter was actually flying to Chicago to do a concert with Red Rocks Worship, right? Okay. And so, but our paths are not going to meet. So I asked the flight attendant at my gate, I said, "What gate is her flight coming in?" It was a gate 3. I said, "Well, I'm on gate 9. I said, "If I wrote you a note on a luggage tag and I asked her to come to your gate, would you give it to her?" He goes, "Yeah, I would." So I wrote a word of encouragement and Romans 8:18 on there. And so she showed up at the gate. The guy, his name was Kevin, and they gave her a big hug. And she got the luggage tag and read that, and they gave her strength to go through that time, because they're kind of the end of their tour. They're getting tired and weary. Sure. I said, but the good that you do here will pay dividends in people's lives. You don't know what that's going to even look like. So, take that moment that God gives you and to encourage somebody, no matter how crazy it sounds.
I love that. That's good stuff. Couple other things to think about. Who are you still keeping a record on? And not you so much, Chad. I don't think you harbor these things like I do. And then, are you rehearsing old wounds instead of releasing them? And that's kind of what I was doing. like replaying these things in my head,
Yeah.
just going down the rabbit hole. And then what would it look like to love them the way Christ loved you, with no scoreboard, no scorekeeping, and no grudge? Forgiveness isn't weakness, it's freedom, and it's also obedience. Because Ephesians 4:32 says, be kind to one another, tender-hearted, forgiving one another as God in Christ forgave you. How can we sit here and accept God's grace but not be willing to give it to other people?
It's accountability. So I had to learn this. Since I got married at 34, right? So I really, this is going to sound kind of weird. I tell people that are single, I said, preaching the word and spreading the gospel is a little bit like dating a little bit. Right? If you're trying to mislead people and giving them half truths and stuff like that, then it's not going to go well, and they're not going to get the full realm of what God has for them. Right? It's kind of like I used to get yelled at because you broke this girl's heart. I go, what did I do? I mean, I didn't lead her on, and she had feelings for me that I didn't have for. I didn't do to make that happen. It just happened, and I'm like. Finally, at some point, I had to say, you know what? I'm not going to take responsibility for that.
Right.
And I tell people too, I said, that's what preaching the word unapologetically means, because not everybody's going to latch onto it. They're not going to want to hear it, but that's not on you. What your job is and what our responsibility is to preach the word, right? And preach what we believe is the truth that God has given us, right? So it's not our job for them to understand what you're telling them. And you can't own that. And so to answer your question, I don't keep score. I move on. Right. I let that go. I mean, that's that for me, that game's over, and it may come back around. And I've got other examples of something like that even happening. So it's a tough lesson to learn, but it's an easier way to live. You can't take people's emotions towards you as your emotions if you didn't generate those. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I mean, because people will conjure up feelings and emotions and things, and I'm like, I don't know where that came from or how you got there. If I caused that, then I'll try to correct it. But you need to let me know. Right. There has to be a conversation how that even happened in the first place. So a lot of things that I don't own. It's not mine to own. It's only God's to hear, and then he can work on their heart. And if they come back around, fine. If not, that's fine too. I'm good. This sounds a little bit arrogant, but I think in our faith, we just have to have confidence in who we are in Christ and how he's guided us and directed us to preach his word and go out. I mean, how many disciples went out and everybody heard everything they said and they just latched onto it? Very few. And they got crucified for it. Sure. So if that's what you're willing to do and you feel that's your calling and God's calling you to do that, you just need to go out with unapologetically. Thank you. Appreciate this.
That's why I'm here.
That's why you're here. To make that happen. And it's a freeing way to live your life, right? Absolutely. If you cannot own other people's issues.
I agree.
That answer your question? What was the question?
There wasn't a question.
Oh, there wasn't a question? Okay.
Just statements.
Okay.
See, I knew you were a pastor. All right, Chet, let's get into some guts and guns, which you have both. So let's get into some basic stuff here. How long have you been married? You said you were married at 34, so
yep.
What is that, 30 years?
Well, I'll be 64 November 28th.
Oh, so almost 30 years.
Yeah.
Wow, this month.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And you have 3 kids. So I only know Brady and Kendra. Who's your third child?
Brooke. My first one.
And what does she do?
She is working with a church startup, and she's thick in the ministry doing that. But for a living, she works at coffee place. She's
she here in Colorado?
She's in Colorado, yeah. Oh. In fact, she just got on a plane and flew to England yesterday. She's there for 10 days. She's single, 28.
Okay.
And so her and I kind of are on the same kind of path. For a dude, it's a little bit different to be on that path, getting married later in life, because, we can still have kids and make families and stuff like that. We don't have a clock ticking, basically, what I'm trying to tell you.
Sure.
You knew that. But, for her, it's a little bit different for a girl, for a woman. And they, but people are having babies later in life and that type of thing. I said, I told Brooke, I said, what you have that your friends do not have at this point, who have gotten married and have kids, is freedom.
Right. You go to England.
You can just pack up. You can just go to England and spend 10 days there, a month there. It doesn't really make any difference. You don't have to answer anybody but the Lord. And so she's going to go there and just read books and get into the Word and the Scripture and just spend time, immersed in the Word. And she's amazing. The problem is that she's probably way beyond most guys her age as far as spirituality goes, right?
Sure.
And I said, look, you're going to have to give some guys a little bit of grace because they're not as smart. Sometimes it takes them a little bit longer to catch on. They got to figure stuff out because the guys have to get hurt a little bit.
Or she could wait and find somebody equally yoked. I'm sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I'm sure that's possible. Well, good for her. Yeah, I didn't really know too much about her. And when you say she's big into church startups, what does that mean?
Well, she's part of a church startup.
Oh, okay.
So they just got into a building a few years ago, and she's trying to manage some of that stuff and works with the youth group. And she's always, before Kendra was even part of the worship and stuff like that, she was working with youth group, and she'd get up in front and preach. And I would tell you that in our family, there's not a shy bone in our family. Anybody.
Wow. Yeah, even your wife.
No, she was Miss Colorado in 1990. Her platform was singing. She's got a degree in women's ministries, and she could stand in front of a Pepsi Center and talk to a group of people with no fear.
That's awesome.
So our family has no fear when it comes to talking. You're not going to find anybody that's shy.
I believe it.
It's good and bad. It's tough at Thanksgiving. Everyone wants to talk.
So then your middle child is Kendra?
Yes.
Okay. And Kendra, she is on the Red Rocks worship team, Red Rocks Church worship team. I remember when she was just an intern and wasn't even really officially on a team yet. And then she went to a different church for a little while, still Red Rocks, different campus, and then came back and she was on the team. Is that accurate?
Yeah. That's the funny thing is God always knows his ways are always better than our ways, right?
Sure.
But sometimes we got to take the wrong trip to figure that out. And she went through the internship, and then they actually, I guess I could say this. She was actually invited her to be a part of the Red Rocks worship team.
Nice.
And so she went away and she prayed about it. She goes, no, I think I'm just going to do coffee. And she was totally convicted on that because that's not where God wanted her. She always wanted to sing. I've got videos of her when she was like 4 years old on a Suzuki 90, just with the helmet on, just going balls to the walls, doing jumps with that little bike and singing praise and worship songs.
Wow.
It's always been in her blood.
That's funny.
But she wanted the mainstream type stuff and different things. But she's written a lot of stuff, and she had some struggles in school. Went to Faith Christian Academy. And just because kids go to Faith doesn't mean they have a great time.
Sure.
And middle school girls are mean. And she had a struggle. With depression and anxiety and. A lot of things that our pastor talks about as well. And a lot of people go through that. And how you get through that is really, my wife was amazing coming alongside, and she didn't want to talk to me about it because she didn't want me to be that concerned, And sometimes guys and girls don't really communicate that well, especially as fathers and daughters. It's tough to have a full understanding because that's how we're made, right? But, yeah, she finally came around and she's just knocked it out of the park. And I told her after the Red Rocks the recording that she got up and spoke. She told Corey that I think I've got a word. And there's 9,500 people there. Awesome. And they're doing a recording. He goes, go ahead. She's earned the trust to get up and just, she got into Psalms and was preaching and I mean, she just got everybody up out of their seats, and they're just, yeah, it was just awesome.
That's so cool.
Yeah, but she had to go through some stuff, and we're always going to go through stuff, Jim, and it never ends.
So did she just not want to deal with the pressure and wanted to do coffee because it was simple, or what was the attraction to coffee? I guess I should ask her that.
Yeah, you have to ask her that question.
Okay.
I think she just didn't feel like she wanted to do worship. Then she came back around.
Gotcha. Fair enough.
Yeah.
Now you have one other superstar on your team, and that's Brady. Yeah. Well, I'll just say he is a youth pastor at Red Rocks Church of out of campus.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Tell us about Brady.
Well, Brady and I, we've gone around a couple times, and he's taught me a lot. I say what I learned from my son is kind of what we're learning with our relationship with Christ, right?
Okay.
God our Father, right? That my timing and his timing did not line up. You know, I thought for a long time that I said, there's no way this kid's going to ever ride a bicycle. Why isn't he riding a bicycle? You know, and he's like, he would always analyze and try to figure stuff out. And then once he landed on it, he would just knock it out of the park. I would have never anticipated him being a hype guy for youth and doing what he's doing and preaching. But he knocked it out of the park, you know, just because he pours himself into that. And he there's a lot of times he'll go, him and I will have a conversation. And he'd be like, Dad, that's not appropriate.
Somebody's got to keep you in line.
Somebody's got to keep me in line,
right.
You know, and he's right, you know, but it's one that it's been really fun for him and I. And before he got married, we decided, or it was actually Brady's idea. He goes, Dad, we need to do a trip to Germany. So we went there for 8 days, just him and I, as the girls are not allowed on this trip, you know, and I told Brady, you know, he's looking through research and stuff. I said, let's not dive into it too hard. Let's let this be spirit led and go somewhere in Germany. Let's get a car, not get any hotels. We didn't have a plan, and we'd just go. And we had the best time, you know. And he's like, Dad, he goes, there's this most beautiful town in Germany. We need to go see that. I go, Brady, it's just you and me. You bring your wife here, that's fine. I said, but we're going to go do dude stuff, because when you're on a trip and your wife says, hey, or you say you want to go do this, and they're like, I'm not really interested. That's the stuff we're doing.
Nice.
Yeah. So that's the guy trip. But that was a fun bonding moment for him and I. And we went to Dachau, the concentration camp. So I went to, that was on the list. Wineries were not on the list, but we went to a lot of wineries. It was just like a good wine and beer in Germany. Let's just face it. So
awesome. So earlier I said we're gonna look. What does it look like to be a successful husband and a father? And this is why I brought that up, because all your kids are thriving, your wife is amazing, and then there's
me.
Then there's you, also amazing. I remember, Chet, when we first met, I was like, because I've been searching. At the time, I was searching for a good group of men, good Christian men. And I was like, that Chet guy, I wonder if I become friendly with him, if he would be a good friend for me. You know what I mean? And look at us now.
Yeah.
So that's cool. So what's the secret? You mentioned earlier you stay out of the way. What else? What makes you a good husband?
This all goes back probably to high school.
Okay.
And being a cops kid in a small town of 500, I had a graduating class of 18, you know, and being the cops kid in a small town, you don't get invited to much.
Right.
I had to learn to be okay with me. And I think that's a real struggle that a lot of people have in life, is they're not okay with themselves. And if you're not okay with yourself, how do you expect other people to be okay with you?
Sure.
You know, and I also learned that we are specifically formed in the womb different than everybody else. That's why you can identify bodies by DNA or crime scenes or whatever you want, because you're very specifically made with that DNA. No one else has it. And if that's true, why would you be like anybody else? Right. And so I purposed myself always to not be like anybody else. In fact, I wrote a little thing and gave it to Brooke, my oldest daughter. She's going to get it tattooed at some point with my handwriting, because my handwriting's okay. It's cursive, which they don't teach anymore. is anybody can be like everybody. And it's a reminder that we're supposed to be an individual, right?
Sure.
Not only mainly in Christ. And we're designed specifically to do exactly what he's designed us to do. And so I've instilled that, I believe, in all my kids, because to a point, Jam, where in high school, go back to high school, I didn't play a lot of basketball. I was on the basketball team, but I didn't get put on the court that often. I think it's because my dad had written the guys a couple tickets, the brothers or whatever, the coaches. But so I stayed there. I was in there to stay in shape for football.
Oh, okay.
Okay. But I'd sit on the bench, and if everybody's sitting on the bench with their arms crossed, I'd uncross my arms and sit back. And I mean, it was to that point that I purposed myself to not look like anybody or be like anybody, or just to be who I am. And they have to, if you're not okay with that, that's fine. You don't need to be around me. I'm okay with that. I mean, because I'm comfortable in my own skin and where I'm at in my life. And I think if you have to get there as an individual and not let the world's noise bother you, because the world has a lot of noise, and one of the songs that Kendra wrote, and it's on her Spotify, because you go into under Kendra Benet, it's her middle name, is called Noise. And it's understanding God's words in the noise, through the noise of the world. How do you drown out the noise of the world and all the stuff around you to listen to what God even has for you? What is your purpose? And to filter that noise is a difficult thing to do, because the world, which is Satan, manages, the noise around you, because he knows what it's going to take to pull you off point where God wants you to be. And so that's really the thing. And, I deal with electronics, and you got filters for that. You don't have the filters in your head to take that noise away. And like you were saying, you're fighting through, some forgiveness and, hanging on to things you shouldn't hang on to. Well, that's just noise, because you have to drill down and separate that stuff and filter it out to get to what really matters in life. And it has nothing to do with all those stuff that you were just thinking about.
Sure.
In fact, I had this conversation with somebody else. If you've heard the saying, the secret to pollution is dilution.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Typically, they're talking about oil fields and stuff like that, but I think it's the same thing in your mind.
Rinse 3 times.
Right. So in your mind, if you got these thoughts in your head, you're confined to a space about this big. Your noggin isn't that large. And so these thoughts are just bouncing around in your head, and but what you need to do is take those and expel them, talk about them, get them out. Find somebody that will listen to it and just let it go. Get them out of your head, and now you've dissipated into the atmosphere. And as soon as you say it, and you've probably seen this, as soon as you actually verbalize it, it doesn't seem as big as it was in your head.
Right.
Right. And that's kind of what I've talked to these guys. And we learned as parents that we've asked for forgiveness. We're not always perfect parents. Sometimes we make decisions that are not right, or we'll act in an inappropriate manner, and kids see that. But if you don't recognize that and ask for forgiveness for that, then they'll just think that's okay behavior. Right. And that goes in strides with people you love. You ask for forgiveness. They see that and they understand, okay, yeah, you're not perfect. Well, no, you're right, I'm not.
Yeah, one of the most powerful things I found, with my stepdaughter is apologizing. Saying, hey, you know what? I was wrong. What?
Yeah.
So
it's okay for adults to admit that you're wrong.
Absolutely. Good stuff, Chet. One other thing that are you the president of the board of SYC?
Yeah, it's kind of like being part of a Baptist church, Jam, that if you miss enough meetings, they promote you.
Oh, gotcha.
So okay.
So I've spoke about the Special Youth Challenge on this show before. Actually, it might have been in the last episode that I was on. SYC Colorado, Special Youth Challenge Colorado. You are the president of the board of directors for that. Tell us about SYC Colorado.
Well, in a nutshell, it's special youth challenges. So it's not a special needs charity group. It's not. In fact, when I first took it over, it was their vision statement said we're a Christian organization. I said, well, you've got to get that out of there.
Really?
We've got to make it faith-based organization. Because a Christian organization may tend to people who are Muslim or Jewish or something else that have things. They say, well, I can't be a part of that because it's Christian, right? And Christianity, I guess, is gotten the words got watered down to a point. You're like, what does it even look like? And I a Christ follower for me would be a better term to use than a Christian. I'm a Christian. I'm a believer, but I'm a Christ follower. So that's one of the first changes I made. We're making it a faith-based organization with guns. Yeah. So and the thing is we do a on a Friday night before we can do the hunt, we'll get out and we'll preach the word. Right. People will understand what we're about. They're going into a property that really it's not owned by it's got a property ownership by title, but God made that, right? And everything we're doing out there is by the hand of God that this is even in play. So in some of the children that we've come alongside are some who have lost a parent. Some have muscular dystrophy, Duchenne disease, which is something you can physically see. They're in a wheelchair. They can't handle a weapon. But we set it up where they can do that. And it's really just coming alongside them. And a lot of it has to do with it's great respite time for the parents. Because if you ever work, I never had any children that are special needs children. Right. An example that might be who somebody's not physically disabled, but you're having to pick them up from rehab because they're vaping, they're around the various people who encourage bad behavior, and that's your kid, right? And so I'm not taking my kids to rehab and back. But that's a need. Sometimes you need to have somebody take them outside their element, which is a natural element in the city, and take them out into the country and witness something different, right? Yeah. Some different feeling. There's something outside of this bubble that they live in the metro area that's much bigger than the metro area. It's more important. I see everybody's like, how can you grow up in Flagler? There's nothing to do. I go, you don't understand how to appreciate little things.
Right. I love Flagler.
Yeah. It's because just the smallest things. We did range judging in the FFA. I was in everything: FFA, FBLA, whatever we had. We were doing everything. Otherwise, there weren't enough people to participate. But I learned a lot. I learned how to cook and sew, and judge ranges and sheep at the same time. It's like, man, okay. But it's important to have a variety of things that in life, and I just want to pass that on. My dad was really instrumental in knowing that mentality with me is being a state trooper. He felt if he didn't spend time in the grade school, middle school area and people see that he's not a monster. He's a cop. He's a personal person, and he just wants your protection. They don't get it later in life. They won't figure that out. Right. So the sooner you can get into that and come alongside him and understand, it's like we're just here to live with each other. And this is what we have to do to make that function here on this earth, right?
How long have you been part of SYC?
That's a great question, Jam. I'm no good at timelines. I think it's probably maybe 10 or 15 years. It's been a minute.
A long time.
Yeah.
I've been humbled and honored to go the last 2 years. So something I look forward to hopefully next year again.
Yeah, absolutely.
Good. All right. Another thing you're into is you are the safety team lead at Red Rocks Church Arvada campus. So did you miss a bunch of meetings there too? How did you get
No, my predecessor bailed out on me and decided not to do it. No, an interesting thing, Jim, about my life. I've never tried to be self-promoting. That may seem odd to you, but I don't. And I tell my kids, I said, if you do the right thing and you're honorable and people see you have some integrity, you will float to the top.
Sure.
Well, like it or not, that's how it's going to happen. Right. And so I don't, and I tell part of the safety team that I tell them, I said, look, here's the deal. I am not the boss. I just got a lot of questions to answer. And if you got questions, you talk to me, then I'll figure it out. Right. So that doesn't make me in charge. We're all a team, and there's no hierarchy here. It's just somebody who has to answer the questions if something comes up, and try someone to point to if there's something nefarious that goes on. So, and my mentality of that is, we did a walkthrough for active shooters and stuff like that at the church, and all the church staff, and then me and Steve Davis. So, and I said, here's the deal. I said, the chances of somebody, if they're casing the joint to do something bad or do a shooting or something in this church, this would be a bad choice for them to pick that. They'd go find a church that doesn't have any kind of security or detail that, the first thing they're going to see is an armed person in the front, and that's going to be a deterrent.
Hopefully.
And they come in and people, but we have to be prepared for that to happen. Right. We don't have to be, but understand, I said, probably the most of the time you're going to be dealing, if you got a security badge on and an earpiece, people are going to ask you where the restrooms are, where do I take my kid? What time does this start? I'm like, I don't know. I'm security guys. Right. But you have to be discernful and see people who are hurting, and you can pray over them, because if you don't have your eternal security correct, the external doesn't matter. And that's what the church is about, and hopefully they'll see that peace and they'll see that in you. And, that's my goal, is they have the wherewithal and the chutzpah, I guess, to walk up to somebody and that looks like a little bit nefarious. The last thing they want is somebody to come talk to them. Yeah. That's the first thing we need to do.
I agree. That was something I would try to do. A lot of times there'd be chatter about, we got a person here looking like, just go walk up and talk to them. Hey,
go talk to them.
Yeah. Maybe they're going through something and that's why they're acting strange.
Mm-hmm.
So good stuff. So Chet, did you grow up hunting? Did your dad start you off pretty young?
No, actually, no.
Really?
Yeah. What I didn't realize when I was growing up in Flagler is we didn't have a lot of money. The state troopers didn't make a lot of money. Wow. It was a pretty light, cost of living and stuff like that. But hunting's very costly. So it wasn't until all of us kids were kind of out of school, Dad became, he started selling guns, and Dad wasn't a big hunter growing up, and so he just kind of got into hunting. Kind of kickstarted by Dad's old neighbor out there in Flagler, and it was probably late high school era before we even started doing hunting.
Okay.
So it wasn't really in his blood, but it was something we enjoyed, and that's another thing I learned from Dad. If he feels like there's something that you would like to do, and I tell people who are getting ready to be married, this is something you need to consider as a dude. Okay, when you're single, there's a lot of things you do, right? When you're married, you're going to have to whittle that down. I said, I wouldn't take those items that you like to do and put them in the closet. I would put them on a shelf where you can see them, because you may come back to them someday. But if it's going to distract what you're doing with your marriage, maybe you shouldn't do it at this point, right? And maybe you can come back around to it. So that's kind of how I've done that with my kids too, with Brady, and now he's into hunting and the guiding, and he likes doing that stuff, but it kind of has to be in his timing. And I don't love skiing, but he decided he wanted to learn how to ski. I said, okay, I'm taking him off the shelf. Let's do it, But it's really, I tell single people that it's okay to be selfish in life, but it's not okay to bring somebody with you.
Huh. So Brady's a guide?
He loves to guide out like a SYC and doing stuff like that. So he's not an official guide, but got it. When we're out in Flagler, he likes to take the lead and do his thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Good stuff. Okay. So did you immediately fall in love with hunting when you first started then in high school?
I'm not even sure I'm even in love with it now.
I mean, you've been hunting for 40 years.
I have.
Yeah.
I have. You know what I love? Is the fellowship. I love going with my brother, with my dad, or my friends, getting together, having time together, cooking food. And if we shoot something, fine. If we're not, that's fine. Most people who go out hunting are not successful. It's very difficult to do. Yeah. I do have some secrets. I don't know. I'm not going to disclose on this podcast, but we were very successful this year, and we're typically successful. But most of the stuff is all private property. That's the difficult thing. If you're going to go to public, that's a whole different thing. And when I became a guide for Tom Colander, who was sadly killed in a car wreck a couple years ago, and my wife went to high school with his wife at A West. That was the connection.
Gotcha.
And he asked me to come out and be a guide, and I go like, I don't know, I hunt.
Where was he at?
Norwood area, Unit 70, down southwest Colorado.
Like Buena Vista. Norwood,
yeah, right? further south and west of there.
Yeah.
By Red Veil in that area.
Okay. How many acres did he have?
He leased all of his property. So he probably had 30,000 acres that could go hunt.
You say 3 or 30?
30.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay.
That plus BLM and National Forest, and he had permits for that and all that stuff. So,
how many years did you guide for him?
23.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, I pretty much started guiding when he got the business. Wow. And kind of my whole, well, it was funny because when my wife to be first introduced me to Tom and Lynn, and they came back because we met at Riverside Baptist Church. So they came to the back after we did one of our Christmas programs. And he goes, I want to introduce you to somebody, and I'm thinking, oh, great. This is the last show. I'm tired. I just want to go home. And she goes, well, he's an outfitter. I go, oh, okay. Okay. Yeah, bring him on back. That's cool. We hit it off. And then I think Tom and I remained better friends, or kept in touch with each other more than, my wife and his wife, right? So, he convinced me to come down and guide. He said, well, all you really need it to be is you need to figure out where the properties are. And then the biggest thing is the fellowship, right? I mean, you want to get an animal, and there's ways to do that, but not everybody has the personality to bring somebody along and have them trust them enough to spend that kind of money to go guide.
Right.
And Tom felt that confidence in me. And I go, sure. I mean, if there's something weird and I get called to do it, I don't back away. I run towards it. I love running toward weird. It's my thing.
I like it.
Yeah, so I never, but what I do love about it is like in Flagler, we'll build a fire in the rec room, we'll play some pool, we'll hang out, and like I said, we'll get out and do what we can do. But my biggest thing is safety. People, they think I'm pissed off when I'm hunting. I go, no, we have rifles and they have live rounds in them.
Right.
I'm just making sure that everybody's being safe. And if you cross me once with the muzzle, then you're done.
It's a good rule.
Yeah.
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 Very good rule. So is most of your hunting now, are you pretty much whitetails out in Flagler? Or?
No. I got whitetail muleys out there. There's antelope out there.
No. Are you doing any elk hunting like in the mountains anymore?
Well, I did have a black powder tag. I'm a little bit spoiled in my hunting. Part of it because I was guiding on private property that was leased, and you can find elk, and it's right there, and a lot of orange in the field makes me annoyed. Right. and I just don't feel safe.
Sure. You
got a lot of knuckleheads who don't see beyond the target.
Right.
And even if it's orange,
yep.
Then I don't want a bunch of rounds lobbed over my head. It's not that fun to me.
Right.
To deal with that. Yeah. It becomes unsafe and it's not that thrilling. And I don't know that I'd really even enjoy doing it on my own. I just love doing it with somebody that I enjoy being with. Because it's the fellowship of it. It's the fun, the camaraderie, the excitement of that, and if you get something, it's fantastic. You can all dive in and, have some fun with it.
So that's why you like processing for the fellowship.
Exactly. So actually we call it a meat processing ministry. I work with the youth group at Faith Bible Chapel. We had a bunch of kids come over and we're cutting up meat and it's crazy how much people don't know about meat. I had one kid standing there looking at a hindquarters hanging up on a hook, and I go, you got a question about that? He goes, yeah. He goes, where's the meat? I go, are you looking for packages of meat up there? I said, that muscle structure is the meat. He goes, what? I go, yeah, that's what it is. And we cut it up in little chunks and then it puts it in the package. Now it looks like you're thinking for, but you're not going to find that hanging on a quarter. You got to make it that way.
That's funny.
Like, so the thing is what I thought, and I told Brady this, and I think he's learning this. I said, Brady, the stuff that you're learning from me in life, the hands-on wrenching, the sawing, we did everything at our house in Flagler. It was built in 1890. So when we moved there, we did all the drywall, the insulation, the wiring, all that stuff. I just figured everybody, that's what we do. My dad never called a contractor. We just did it. And so that's what I'm trying to, I kind of instilled into Brady. I said, you need to do the electronics and stuff, but you need to get out of the basement. You need to self-time your space down there, but you need to do that. And we'll come out, we'll do some wrenching, we'll do some work on stuff. And he's done pretty good at that. But I told him, I said, you're not going to know how much you know until you're around people your age who don't know anything. Right. And he goes, Dad, I'm finding that out. He goes, I don't know how they'd not know that. I go, because they didn't have a dad that really taught them. And it's important. Dads are important,
Yep. So one person we left out is your son-in-law, and that's Logan.
Yep.
And you guys went hunting this year together. And I saw a picture. You sent me a picture of the buck that you got. Big-bodied buck.
Yeah.
I thought he had a decent rack.
Mm-hmm.
And then Logan's was big as well.
And bigger than mine.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, he got the big rat buck. And so I don't know if Logan will watch this or not. He might watch this, so I guess I'll tell him he's mentioned it. But him and I are learning how to be a father-son, right? Yeah, and because I've also learned that not everybody had a dad like I had, was the relationship that we had.
Sure.
That's kind of a rare thing I'm finding out, and it's just sad that that's the case. But, there's a chance to make that up, and this is an opportunity for Logan and I together to go do stuff. It's just him and I, and I think he's understanding the importance of that. And I said, it's okay to have a bigger buck than me. That's fine. I tell people, I said, I'm not very competitive. I just don't like to lose. but it's fun for him to understand that. And, just because I gave him a little quick example, and I don't think he'll bother, mind me saying this, but my dad gave me a 25-06, a little Ruger M77, 25, great round, great scope. And after Logan got married, his first hunt, I said, he shot his first deer with that. I said, look, I'm going to give this to you. And it was just very sentimental. And I had another 25-06 in the safe that had a kind of a fancier stock, but it's still a Ruger M77, blah, blah, blah. And he goes, can I trade for that one? I go, no. You can give mine back and you can buy this one. He goes, what? I go, this was an heirloom from my dad. I said, if you don't want it, that's fine. I said, but you're going to have to buy that one. I'll give this to maybe when Brooke finds a husband and she needs to get married, then that could be his. And he's like, he totally backed off. He goes, no, I got it. He goes, he's very sentimental. Logan is. I love the kid, and I think it's just, he needs to work through some stuff, and like we all do. And I offer a lot of grace because I didn't grow up that way. Right. And so not understanding how he grew up in life and how he's functioned through all of that, I can't pretend to know how to correct it because I didn't go through it. Sure. So we have to figure that out together, and I tell people all the time, I said, especially the security team, I said, when you go approach somebody that you don't know that you don't know anything about them. You don't know how they came there, what situation did they just come out of? Are they going through something now? How did they grow up? Where were they raised? You're not going to find all that stuff out, but you got to offer some grace walking into the situation somewhat, right? You still have to be diligent, but understand that you're not going to know anything about them, and if you can approach life and people in general that way, and there's a lot of really good people in the world, and I think sometimes you just need to scoop a little bit to get to it, because everybody now has these big walls that they put up immediately, and it's for a good reason. A lot of it has to do with social media. You and I never heard the word FOMO when we were kids, fear of missing out, right? I mean, we didn't have that because we had no clue what people were doing.
You got to ride your bike to go find out.
Yeah. it's too much work to go figure out what people were doing. I'm like, I don't know.
Oh, that's funny. Were you guys out there in Flagler, were you blind hunting or what were you doing? What kind of hunting were you doing?
Oh, with pocket stock.
Oh, okay.
Or, and I kind of know where some of these properties are. We did a lot of walking.
Okay.
It depends on what season you're going in. Yeah, I can't give all my secrets. I'll give them to you off air.
Yeah. Yeah, those were big body bucks, bigger than we saw when we were out with SYC. That's for sure.
Yes, they aren't in the lake.
Right.
There is one big whitetail that's running around, and he kept ducking into the corn. That's the problem right now. There's a lot of corn up and a lot of milo, and they stay in the milo. They
Gotcha.
don't. Yeah.
Now, are you taking Josiah out there in a couple of weeks? Is he going with you or?
I think he's coming out.
Okay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he said he has one more hunt this year. Eastern Plains whitetail. I'm like, yeah, I don't know where that's at.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I think he's going to come out. We've got a couple weekends. I've got my nephew is going to come out for antelope hunting.
Nice.
With some friends from Missouri. That's a whole nother story. Different podcast.
Huh.
Different podcast.
That's awesome. Well, I hope you and Logan had a good time out there and got to do some bonding.
Well, we did, and he came out. I was out there a day early. In fact, he shot my buck before he got there, so I can just focus on him.
Nice.
And he ended up with a bigger one, and that's fine. That's great. I mean, and he brought a friend of his to kind of pour into, and what I see from Logan is he comes alongside people a lot. And it doesn't matter what you look like or where you came from. He's diligent about doing that, and that's important. I think
awesome.
And people always in life, a lot of people just want to be seen.
Right.
Does anybody recognize me? And then it's kind of silly thing that I do, but my wife doesn't mind me doing this. And if I understand that women, they spend a lot of time in the morning putting on makeup, fixing their hair, and they're, dolling some stuff up a little bit. And if no one ever says anything, at some point they feel like, why do I even bother?
Sure.
But I make it a point when that happens, and I don't make this up. I said, man, your makeup looks amazing today. Your hair looks fantastic. What did you do? And even with my wife standing, she knows I'm not trying to come on to them.
Sure.
I'm just saying sometimes people just want to be seen. Right. Why do I spend my time fussing to make myself look better or seem better when no one even notices? But God knows them. He understands them.
Yeah, it's hard to teach them to seek validation from the Lord, though.
It is. Absolutely. But I think you can start there and understand that, it doesn't mean they have to be a schlafmitz, and go out and just whatever.
Right.
You still got to represent, but it's nice to be recognized for that. And also, I think I've talked to you about this before, that I use the 80-20 rule pretty much everything in life.
Maybe.
All right. So I'll tell you. So I figured most of the time in life, especially with children, they're doing the right thing. But as parents, if we just expect them to do the right thing, we don't say anything. However, it's good to tell them and encourage them that you saw that and they did the right thing. And 20% of the time is something you need correction. So I'm thinking 80% promotion, 20% correction. And the same thing is in life. Just because somebody's doing something that you anticipated them to do or they expected them to do, doesn't mean you can't praise them for that, right? Especially as a boss.
Sure.
This is what we ask you to do, and you did all that. So why should I say anything? Well, you should say something because you've seen it. You saw them doing it. You're encouraging them, and pushing them in that direction. That's how you get people who want to do things for you. And I will tell you, my kids will vouch for this, that they would rather me be mad at them than tell them I'm disappointed.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, no doubt.
Yeah.
I was going to tell you a little bit about my hunting experience out in Meeker. So opening morning comes, and I'm sitting in the blind that I took my buck from last year, and this 4x4 comes walking up the valley. And I was like, I wanted to be a little bit pickier this year as far as the maturity of the buck. And he was a 4x4, but he was kind of a small bodied 4x4. I've never really passed on a buck before, but I was like, I'm going to pass on this buck. And, I know it's opening day. Like, it would have been nice to shoot something opening morning and, like, already be successful. But I was like, nah, I'm going to wait. I started playing it through my head, like, well, would I shoot it on the last day? And the answer was no. So I let it pass. But after I passed on that buck, I started talking to God a little bit. You know what I mean? Like, God, make this decision okay. Like, I want to make sure I made the right decision passing on that buck. So anyway, I go and I do some ranch chores. I go fill this water tank, this stock tank out front or whatever. And I come back, and as I'm driving into camp, there's this 3x3, a big body 3x3, 250 yards from my camper. And my buddy, who earlier, when I told him I passed on that 4x4, he's like, oh boy, here we go. Like, you shouldn't pass, take your opportunity. I'm like, yeah, I didn't feel called to shoot that deer. Like, I didn't want it, and I wouldn't want it on the last day. So anyway, when I came into camp, he was there, and he was like, oh, there's your opportunity right there. And I almost passed on that buck because it didn't feel like hunting to me, really. It was like, this is too easy, But looking at him, I was like, yeah, I felt called to that buck. So I guess my first, thing I want to talk about is just trusting God, like, with the decision that you made. And you know what? If he didn't provide that other buck, then that would have been okay. Kind of like you said, like, if we get something, great. If we don't, it's great just to be out in nature anyway. So it was super cool to just have that, like, hand delivered to camp, Right. And I feel like, God did show me, some mercy on that and just made it okay. And it was still opening day.
Yeah. Well, that kind of something that happened this hunt that we just did. Okay. So we're on this guy's property, and my buddy and I were there, my buddy Ken, and we decided we'll just get there before daylight. We're glassing, look around, don't see anything. And I said, all right, well, I'm going to go walk the straw all the way to the bottom of this thing and walk it out. So he gets back to the truck, and I get almost to the end of the draw, and this whitetail buck stands up, a small one. I would have shot it just because I'm just putting meat in the freezer.
Right.
And but it took off and out, gone.
Huh.
And I'm not going to take that running away from me shot. I'll shoot running things, as you find out, But I look up, and my buddy Ken had driven the truck down perpendicular to where I was, and it's that diesel, and it's like the buck stood up and took off. He didn't even see me.
Oh, wow.
And he felt horrible. My buddy Ken, I said, dude, it's okay. There may be a reason why I don't have that buck. It's okay.
Right.
And then that evening is when I got that other buck.
Nice.
I don't know if you have time. I can tell you my mountain goat story.
Sure. Let's hear it.
I actually have it printed out. You can read it sometime. I'll do a Cliff Note version of it.
Okay.
So this was 2013. 2013 was my 2020, my COVID year. I mean, I had highs and lows, like not little ones. It was like crazy stuff going on. And of course, I've been applying for that tag for years.
Right.
And I happened to pull that mountain goat tag that year. And so I did a test hike to see how I would do physically, because now I'm getting older, and it's like I don't go up in the mountains all the time. And I decided on that test hike that I probably needed to get a guide with a horse because you got to get up above timberline to shoot these dang things.
Was the horse to carry you up or what?
Yeah, it's the horse that and to carry the animal down. So it's funny because I got this horse named Blue. It's a white horse with blue eyes, and it's the same horse that I used for my bighorn sheep hunt. Same outfitter, but it was just me, the outfitter, and a packing horse. That's it. But I still had Blue. Blue's 25 years old, but he's a high altitude horse. You have to have horses that will be in high altitude, and they're good at that. And so he told me the same thing he told me during bighorn sheep hunting is that the last thing you do before you get on your horse is put your rifle in the scabbard, right? Because you you don't want to make sure the horse doesn't take off or something. So the first thing you do when you get off this horse is take the rifle out of the scabbard.
Okay.
Right? So blue is like one of those new Mercedes cars that when you stop at the light, the engine shuts off. But I think blue was like, you just like go to sleep right away. So that horse is not going to take off with my rifle, you know? And so I had done a lot of scouting and investigating, and everything that I was finding, all the sheep the goats are not where we camped. And I'm thinking, why are we camped here? He goes, well, the owner said that there's this big billy, you know, just up over the hill. It's the same place we hiked to that I could hardly get to. And I go, okay. I'm trusting you. You're the guide, right? And so we go up there, and he gets glass, and he goes, that's a nanny. That's not a billy goat. I said, okay, well, I don't go shoot a nanny. So we get back down, we get the horses. He goes, well, what do you want to do? I said, well, you know, we're already on the horses. We're already up here. Let's just go, you know. And I'd been praying, and before I left, I told Carrie, I said, I'm just going to pray for success, and, you know, I'll just pray for her now. You know, and you do that when you leave, you know, will you bless me and that type of thing. So he's glassing, and all these goats are over where I had figured out that's where they were going to be because they're there, right? And so this is up the Collegiate Peaks, up by Camp Hale and up in that area. Or not Camp Hale, I mean Yale and Harbor, you know, those Collegiate Peaks behind Buena Vista. Mm-hmm. And so we're riding the horses up, and we stop at the spot to just go glass. And so I leave my rifle in the scabbard, right? And I got my binoculars, and we're just glassing, looking around. He goes, why don't you just go up this little rock area, go over these boulder fields and see if we're missing anything. So I got my binos, and I'm walking up the boulder field, and he goes, Chet. And I'm looking, here's this huge billy. Almost ran him over. I mean, he was that close. Rifle's in the scabbard. Like, okay, I got it.
Dang it.
So off goes the billy. We watched him run there over the peak, and
gone.
I could have hit him. I mean, if I had my rifle, I would have shot him, right? Big Billy. I go, okay. I go, what do you want to do? He goes, well, let's go back down. Let's go down a little ways, and we tie off the horses, and he glasses back up where we just were, and there's a group of goats up there. Nannies, kids, and one Billy. And the Billy's not as big as the Billy that I missed. And he goes, what do you want to do? You want to go after the big Billy, or do you want to go after this one? Let's go over the one we see. Let's go after that one. You know, and we did. We got up on him, and I got within 50 yards of him. I put him down, and you know, he's at the house.
I've seen him.
Yeah. And so what I learned in that, and it's funny because the guide, he's like, I'm going to do something I've never done before. I'm going to go get the horses, come up here, and ride right to this billy goat. Usually you have to like follow him off a cliff or haul him out of something, but he got right to the billy, and we just put him in the thing, and then we're good, right? And so while I'm sitting there, God put this on my heart. He goes, you know what? You prayed for a blessing, and I gave it to you. You weren't ready to receive it. You had that goat that I sent you, but you didn't have your rifle out of the scabbard. When you pray for something and you're expecting something from God and you're not ready to receive it, it will go over the hill, right? So if you're not praying expectantly to receive what you're asking him for, you're not going to get it.
Wow.
But however, he said, I did want to bless you. So you got your billy goat. He's not as big as that one.
Right.
But you got I wanted to bless you with that. That was my lesson I learned.
I like it. That's cool. Good story. So then God showed me a little bit more mercy, and I was able to harvest my first bull this year. And that was pretty cool because it was the last day. So I got some on the first day. Now it's the last day, you know, and there's basically 2 hunts left because you see him in the morning, you see him in the evening.
Right.
You know, otherwise you're just spooking them, basically.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And I went out that morning to get to my spot, and they were crossing the road already, which isn't good.
No.
So I just slowed down, and I started pushing them back a little bit. So I split the herd. Some of them went over to the other side of the road onto different private, and then these guys started pushing back. I went up and I flipped a U-turn and I came back down. I slowed down. They kept pushing back. They pushed a couple 100 yards off the road and I ran down to the last gate on this property and I went in there and I drove along this ridge that I've been hiking up all like 3 or 4 days now, just watching everything. And I just drove along the ridge till I got to a spot where I thought I would be safe. Jumped out, grabbed my pack, my gun. I got this bag that I like to shoot off of called the Game Changer. And it's a beautiful thing. So anyway, I got up behind some sagebrush or whatever, and I'm watching this herd. It's still not daylight. I can't even see if there's horns, but I hear them bugling. The cows are calling. It's pretty active, man, and I'm getting excited. And finally, the sun comes up a little bit, and I see that bull, and it was like, no way. And ranged him a couple times, got him in my sights, hit him once. The herd took off. He was trying to take off, couldn't really move that good. Turned around, ran a little bit, hit him again, and he died at 487. So it was pretty exciting to get my first bull.
That's awesome.
Along with that buck. It was a blessed year. You know, I just feel very fortunate, great, you know, lots of gratitude, and yeah, it's crazy.
No, that's cool. And, you know, the thing, God knows what makes us happy, right? He wants us to have joy, you know, and I think he does it unexpectedly, which is great. I mean, when you surprise people, it's more exciting for you to surprise somebody with something, right? Yeah. And so when God does that for us, you're like, oh man, I didn't see that coming. Well, that's on purpose, you know?
Yeah. I think also like, it's nice when a plan comes together, you know, with his blessing, of course, right? Glory to God. But, you know, a few mornings earlier, I went out there and they all ran over, and I stopped and they all just ran by the truck, you know. So the fact that they pushed back this time, you know, was pretty cool to actually have it all come together. But yeah, I mean, you got to be ready to act. There's got to be a sense of urgency too. Like, here's your opportunity. Don't watch it run away, you know.
Well, and understand how that happened.
Explain.
Bighorn sheep hunt. Okay, 09. No, that wasn't 09. It was sometime after that. Yeah, whatever, doesn't matter. Okay. So anyway, that's the year that I had my stroke. Right? And so I do the bighorn sheep tag. And my wife's like, yeah, can you turn it in? I go, no, I can't. I mean, yes, I can, but no, I won't. No, I won't. Because, you know, here's the thing is I know God knows my heart. He knows my condition. He knows what I'm going through. Why would I draw a tag unless there's a reason? So I bought a 5-day hunt, same outfitter, Old Blue. Now this is before I got the goat tag. So same thing, 5 days. We scouted glass, but that same night he had a helper with him. And him and I started having a conversation about faith and how can you be in this outdoors and not understand that there's a God and how he makes this. And he goes, yeah, he goes, I get that. He goes, this is kind of, you know, my church. I go, absolutely. If there's 2 or more are gathered, he's here. So this is church for us. Right. He goes, well, I grew up Catholic, and, you know, and we go, you know, I said, you know, that's cool. I said, but here's what I love about Catholics. They have a lot of head knowledge because you go to catechism and you do all your stuff and you're fed information about the Bible. But that doesn't get ingested into your heart. So you just need to transfer from your head to here. I said, he just wants you on a personal level. I said, you don't need a priest. You don't need me. You don't need a pastor. You don't need anybody. It's just that you have a personal relationship with Christ, you know? And we had that conversation pretty quickly. And then we went off. We did our hunt. Come back after I shot my ram, opening day, went back the next day to go get it because it was so far away. It was like 5-mile ride, horse ride, you know, back. And we split it out. We went and to get it, and we came back, and they said, well, do you want to go back tonight? I go, no, let's just hang out by the fire. I'll cut some back straps off, and we'll have that. Oh, they go, nice. Wow, okay. So we're doing that, and the guy, the outfitter's taking the horses and tying them off and giving them fed, and I said, hey, do you want to finish that conversation we had? He goes, yeah. I said, do you understand what we're talking about, but personal relationship with Christ, right? And you understand, you know, why Jesus died on the cross for our sins and, and stuff. I said, and he just wants you to know on a personal level, is that something that you would like to do? He goes, I would. I said, well, do you want to do that tonight? He goes, yeah. So we prayed the sinner's prayer, and he prayed to receive Christ as his personal Savior. Wow. And we were just hugging by the fire. It was dark, and Terry came back, and I told him what had happened. I said, you know what, guys, here's the deal. I said, I don't understand why I got that tag, but it had nothing to do with that sheep. That sheep sacrificed himself so you can know him at a deeper level. I said, it just had nothing to do with this hunt.
That's crazy.
It just has everything to do with you. And God just wanted to know you, and this is how he's going to get your attention. So I appreciate the sheep. It was a fun hunt. It was a once-in-a-lifetime thing. I get that, but that's not why I'm here. I'm here for you.
Love it.
Don't underestimate why God put you in those positions.
I love it. Good stuff. So you have any final thoughts before we go?
No, I enjoyed it. It was the thing I don't mind talking about my faith. And I think that I tell people, I said, the older I get, the bolder I get, because I'm at that spot in my life. My dad died at 60. I'm 60. I'll be 64. And I figure I'm not on borrowed time, but I'm certainly on time that I feel like I've wasted the first 30 years of my life in my faith, not understanding fully. But during that time, it's a qualifying round for me. Those 20 years that I had as a believer, but the stuff that I went through and how I got through it and how God was gracious enough to let me go through it and unscathed pretty much, is a reason I can talk about that. I'm not just a pastor's kid that did everything right, which is not true. They still don't do everything right. I'm just saying, when you go through things in life and God brings you through that successfully and you come out the other side a better person, if you just hang on to that, that's the wrong thing to do. You need to shout that from the mountaintops. I love it. For people who want to hear, they want to see, they go, why did you come through that? How did you such a great attitude after going through that? Well, because it has nothing to do with me. It has everything to do with what God wants to do maybe for you. Right? Yeah. I mean, if he can do it for me, why can't he do it for you? I
love it. My final thought, just going to go back to forgiveness a little bit. When we choose to forget someone's wrong, we're not saying it didn't matter. We're saying God matters more. True love doesn't erase a memory. It redeems it. And when you forgive like that, you start to look a lot more like Christ.
Can I give you a final thought?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
When you just said that, it prompted me to think of something. I was talking to somebody in life that, you got people forgiving, right? And they don't want to forget. And I asked them, I said, you know what the process of pruning is? Crops, plants, whatever. Yeah. You cut out the dead things, right, that aren't producing, but you also cut out good things. So the better fruit can grow bigger, right? So sometimes in your life, you feel that you've got people that are around you that are okay, but they're not great for you. Prune them.
Yeah.
You can do that. It's okay. If you don't need that in your life, it's okay to prune what is going to be good. And maybe they'll come back around and be better, but you don't need that dragging you down.
I agree.
So when you talked about forgetfulness and forgiveness, doesn't mean you still have to be their friend.
True.
But you be there available for them.
You could forgive and you could forget, but you could also not participate anymore.
Correct. That's a correct thing right there.
You have to also protect your heart, and you got to protect your house.
Right.
Right. So forgiveness and forgetfulness is great, but also like.
I tell people, if you're a recovering alcoholic, you don't need to go to a bar to preach.
Right. Yep. Exactly.
Yep.
Good stuff. Well, all right, Chet. It was my pleasure to have you on the show this week. Definitely nice to chop it up with you for a bit. And I think we'll go have some dinner and call it a day.
That was awesome. Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
Thanks, everybody, for watching. We'll catch you next week.